Hey everybody, this is a Q&A response video for Q Computer Company. This is video response number 4. And YouTube user StarDexLZN asked me, which is better, AMD or Intel? And this is really a good topic, especially considering the time frame we're in right now. This is September 2011, and AMD is about to release a new version of CPU lineup for desktops, codenamed Bulldozer, as many AMD fanboys may know about. It'll be based on the socket AM3 Plus setup, and it will be backwards compatible with some AM3 motherboards. Now anyways, let me give you my opinions on AMD and Intel. And of course, these are my personal opinions. Everybody else may have different opinions. It really depends on what kind of CPU you use, what your budget is, that sort of stuff. So please do not post hateful comments against AMD or Intel or their fans. I encourage you not to do that. Anyways, let's get started. First off, I'm going to talk about the budget era. When it comes to buying a CPU, many out there tend to want to find a CPU that offers good performance for a decent price. You get a CPU that gives you the most power for your money. And in this area, I think AMD has leading edge. I mean, their CPUs have always seemed to have been cheaper than Intel's. And I think the biggest reason because of this is simply the fact that AMD does not advertise that much. And of course, Intel advertises all the freaking time. I mean, they advertise on TV, they advertise on the internet, and sometimes even on the radio. I mean, they advertise on everything. A lot of especially you'll see their logos in Dell commercials, that sort of stuff. And it seems like Dell by themselves, they prefer to use Intel rather than AMD. And I think it might be because of the contract too. Anyways, back to the point. See, Intel CPUs tend to cost a lot more than AMD's, especially when you talk about Extreme Edition CPUs. Intel is known for $1 kilo CPUs, especially when the Core i7 Extreme come out. That CPU costs over $1,000 on Newegg, and I mean, this is my personal opinion. A lot of people may not really care about the price, but I personally would not waste my money on a CPU. I would not spend over $1,000 on a CPU. I would not spend over $500 on a CPU. I probably wouldn't spend over $300 on a CPU. And I noticed a lot of Intel fanboys would buy the Intel Core i7-920 and overclock it, and you get pretty much the same results that they would get out of the Extreme Edition. And AMD offers really good value from their low-end CPUs to even their performance-grade CPUs. The new AMD Bulldozer lineup is about to come out anytime now, sometime in September. That's what it's planned to be anyway. And they'll be a bit pricey, but nowhere near as pricey as Intel's new CPUs are when they come out. I'm not exactly sure on exact numbers, but I think the new Bulldozer CPUs will probably be in, I would say, the $300 to $500 range at tops, because they are FX CPUs. And of course, AMD will charge a bit more for FX chips than they would their regular lineup. And I think nowadays, I mean, even with AMD's quads and 6-core CPUs, they're good values, because I mean, you get a lot of CPU for your money. Even the 6 cores right now are usually $200 or less for retail box CPUs, which is not bad at all. Anyways, now I'm going to talk about performance. As of right now, September 9th, 2011, Intel has the leading edge on desktop performance CPUs. Of course, the Core i7s. I mean, they're expensive, but if you're looking for raw, extreme performance, as of right now, you can get an Intel Core i7 and get plenty of performance. Now, within the next few weeks, the tides may turn, because AMD, like I said, is coming out with their new Bulldozer lineup really soon. Either September or October of this year, they will release the Bulldozer platform. They've already released their APU setup, and I mean, that's pretty cool to have the graphics and your chip all in one chip. your CPU and your graphics in one chip is a nice thing to have. And if I'm not mistaken, AMD is also coming out with a Bobcat-based setup for netbooks, which I believe will be an APU setup. You'll have the CPU and the graphics in one chip, which is really good for netbooks. I mean, right now, the Intel Atom setups just don't really cut it. I mean, the CPU performance is not that well, and of course the Intel integrated graphics doesn't work too well either. I mean, my netbook is from 2008. The newer ones may do a little better, but still, I mean, it's like comparing, it'd be like comparing it with, it'd be like taking a netbook and comparing it with, let's say, a 2005 or 2004 compliant Windows XP desktop. That's pretty much the performance you get out of a netbook. I'm serious. Which hopefully, if AMD comes out with the Bobcat setup, it'll really boost performance in netbooks. And Windows 7 Starter will be just a freaking joke. It already is a joke anyway, but anyways, performance right now is Intel. This may change within the next couple of weeks. Now let's talk about the hardware design. In terms of the socket design, I think Intel has leading edge. I mean, this is my own personal opinions. I like how Intel's CPUs don't have the pins on the bottom, unlike AMD desktop CPUs still had the pins on the bottom. Intel made a really big head start on upgrading their CPU design. I mean, it's a really good design. I mean, you can transport the CPUs not having to worry about the pins getting broken on them so easy. However, when you take the pins off the CPU, the pins are now on the motherboard. So you have to be careful in transporting a motherboard. You may have to make sure you have the CPU socket covered up so that way things don't get messed up. And of course, for those who don't know, AMD has that design on their server lineup, Socket F. Socket F CPUs have the LGA setup, have the pads on the CPU and the pins on the board. And in some cases, I mean, it's in terms of cooler design, it really depends on what kind of cooler you have. I don't really like push pin coolers because they tend to break so easy. The pins are so fragile. And with the mount through coolers, I mean, it's not that easy when you have to take your motherboard out if you have an older case. AMD redesigned their mounting design when Socket AM2 came out. They still have the clip design on the cooler, but the retention bracket now has 4 holes that go through the board. So that way, if you have a high-end cooler that mounts through the board, the cooler will mount much better than previous K8 setups only had 2 mounting holes. You get better even load on top of the CPU itself. Now, of course, these are just my quick opinions between AMD and Intel. And like I say, performance, as of right now, Intel has the leading edge. Value is AMD. Socket design, Intel. Cooler design, really depends. I prefer AMD. And of course, I use AMD in all my setups. The only Intel setup I have is my netbook. All my desktops are AMD. Now, before I conclude this video, I'll talk about overclocking these CPUs. Now, I have messed with Intel just a hair bit. I have not messed with the Core i7s, but I have messed with the Core 2 Quad before. And it wasn't a very overclockable CPU. It really depends on what chip you have. I'm more used to AMD CPUs when it comes to overclocking. I mean, the Phenom 2 lineups overclock really well. The Athlon X2s tend to overclock really well. Matter of fact, in the BlackMax system, if you look at my other videos, this is my parents' machine. It has an older Socket 939 dual core, first gen X2, that was pulled from HP. It's a 3800 plus. It was normally clocked at 2 GHz. I have it overclocked at 2.5, just with a little bit of a voltage increase, and it changed to the hyper transport multiplier. That's simple. Oh, by the way, it does have a heat pipe cooler on it, but I mean, it runs really stable, especially considering how easy it was to overclock. And we're talking about half a gigahertz overclock on this thing. Now, some Intels out there overclock really well, and of course the i7s are pretty good at overclocking. And if some of you may not have noticed, when Core i7s come out, you notice how things are really similar in terms of the bus design. They more or less copied AMD's hyper transport design. Anyways, that concludes Q&A video number 4 for Cube Computer Company. If you have any computer questions or technology questions, please submit those questions to the profile page for Cube Computer Channel. So if you're viewing this video from the video player, click on the blue Cube Computer Channel link above the video player. Or if you're viewing this from Cube Computer Channel, post the comment to the channel. Anyways, have any questions or comments, let me know.